Hey, wide awake family. If you're not part of the family yet and love creepy stories, then hit that subscribe button and join us. Tap the bell icon so you'll never miss a story. It really helps out the channel. If you've already done all that, then smash that like button to lock it in, and please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I would love to interact with you legends. Now to the story.
I was supposed to meet her that Saturday. We talked about it all week. It wasn't even some dramatic build-up either. It was just like casual. She'd mentioned this bookstore downtown that had a hidden cafe inside. Said they did weird teas and let you bring your dog in. I didn't have a dog, but I still said I'd go. Her name was Alina, or at least, that's what I thought. We'd met on this app called Grove. It's not huge. Kind of a low-key mix of dating and social journaling. People post voice memos and photos of their day. She commented on one of mine about some boring sunset I recorded on a bus ride home. Said it reminded her of the view from her grandma's house. I messaged back. It just clicked from there. She was funny. Dry kind of humor, which I liked. She'd send blurry pics of her food and pretend they were Michelin star meals. She talked about how she was always late to everything, how she hated people who chewed loudly, how she'd had this weird dream where she got stuck inside a vending machine. It didn't feel fake. I don't know how else to say it. She had a whole vibe. She sent voice notes too. Not all the time, but enough that it felt real, like I knew her. The only weird thing, we never FaceTimed, never called. I asked once, and she said her phone mic was broken. I didn't push it. She sent pictures though, tons of them, and they were all consistent. Same lighting, same outfits reappearing, same dog always lurking in the background like a shadow. I even started recognizing the ugly wallpaper in her bathroom selfies. So yeah, I believed it. And when she said, we should meet this weekend, I said yes without really thinking twice. The day of, I showed up 20 minutes early. I kept rereading our last messages while sipping this gross lemon ginger tea she swore was underrated. She said she'd be wearing a gray hoodie with purple sneakers. I watched every single person that came through the door. Then she walked in. Except it wasn't her, or at least, not the girl from the pictures. The girl who walked in was older. Not way older, but definitely not who I'd been talking to. Her hair was longer, face sharper, posture way more stiff. She looked nervous. She saw me, paused, then walked straight over. No hesitation. She asked my name and I nodded. Still confused, she sat down across from me and didn't even try to pretend to be Alina. She told me Alina was dead. Like actually dead. Had been for about 4 months. She died in a car crash. Some freak accident. She said Alina had been her cousin. They were close. She was the one who cleaned out her apartment, went through her phone, packed up her stuff. She said she found our messages while going through the phone, that there weren't many people left in Alina's life, not anyone close, and that I seemed nice, that I seemed to care, that she wanted to keep me around. So she kept messaging me, using Alina's photos, her voice notes, even her playlists. At first, she said it was just curiosity, then it was comfort, then it became a habit. She said it felt like she was keeping Alina alive, or keeping something alive. Like I was filling a space that no one else noticed had gone empty. I just sat there, frozen. I kept thinking she was messing with me, like it was some kind of joke, or social experiment, or dark prank show. I kept waiting for someone to jump out with a camera and say something. But no one did. She pulled out a phone and showed me one of Alina's last photos. It was her dog on a couch, asleep. I recognized the weird curtain in the background from the selfies she'd sent. I recognized the mug on the table. I even remember the dog's name, Sammy. She said she'd bury the dog too, a month after Alina. Got sick suddenly. She said she cried more about the dog. At one point, I asked why she didn't just stop, like why she didn't just delete the account and move on. She looked at me and said something I haven't been able to forget. She said, because you replied every day, you cared. Even when I was being weird, you just stayed. That was it. That was her explanation. She wasn't even asking for forgiveness. She didn't cry. She didn't seem embarrassed. It was like she just wanted me to know. Like that was the end of the story and now I could leave. But I didn't leave right away. I just sat there staring at my cold tea, trying to figure out what had just happened. I think I nodded or said, okay. I don't remember clearly. I remember standing up. I remember the bell on the bookstore door ringing my left. I remember checking my phone 10 times on the walk home and not seeing any messages. That night, the Alina profile had disappeared. Gone. No warning. And the number stopped working. I didn't report it. Didn't post about it. I just let it be. Sometimes I wonder if anyone else got caught up in her story too. If there were other people she kept messaging after Alina died. If there's a whole little web of fake comfort she built using someone else's memories. Or maybe I was the only one. Either way, I never answered another DM from a stranger again. I honestly thought the guy was fake at first. The photos were too sharp, too perfect. The kind of clean, sculpted lighting you only see in ads for Cologne or luxury watches. He said his name was Reed, and he'd messaged me on this artsy photography app I use sometimes to post random nature shots. Not even a dating app, which somehow made it feel more natural. Less like he was trying to flirt, more like he'd stumbled onto my page and liked the vibe. His profile was minimal. One photo, a headshot of that impossible jawline and flawless skin, and a handful of comments on scenic shots. No bio, no filler. He said he found my page through a photo hashtag spiral. I bought it. At first, we kept it casual, talking about pictures, lighting tricks, favorite filters, dream locations. And it shifted into music, then movies. He asked what kind of stuff I was into, and he remembered it all. That's what sucked me in. The way you remember little details. The obscure Icelandic indie band I liked, how I preferred thrillers over horror because I get too jumpy. He wove those details back into conversation weeks later like breadcrumbs, like proof he'd been listening. He wasn't pushy either, never too flirty, never rushed. He didn't even ask for my number until a week in. Said he didn't want it to be weird, which of course made me think he wasn't weird. Eventually, I gave it to him. We switched to texting, though he avoided calls and voice notes. That should have been a red flag. But his messages were sweet, thoughtful, and just distant enough to feel mysterious. By the time a month had passed, we were texting every day. I knew his favorite books, the cities he claimed to want to visit, the way he liked my photos almost instantly after I posted them. When he suggested we finally meet, I said yes without thinking twice. We planned to meet at this low-key coffee shop in town, one with squeaky wooden chairs and bad lighting. I wore my favorite oversized hoodie and didn't bother with much makeup. I told myself it might not even happen, that this would probably end in a letdown. But I wasn't prepared for who did show up. I sat there, eating a muffin, checking the door every time it opened. It was raining, so most people came in fast, shaking off umbrellas and stomping puddles off their shoes. I was watching a couple argue at the pastry counter when someone walked up to my table and said my name. I looked up. He wasn't tall. He wasn't sharp-jawed. He wasn't Reed. It was Caleb. At first, my brain lagged. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. Then he smiled, and it hit me like ice water down my spine. The lopsided grin. The little scar on his chin from when he tripped on a scooter. I hadn't seen him in years, but it was him. I used to babysit this kid. Actually babysit him. Feed him snacks and wipe his nose babysit. He was maybe 8 or 9 the last time I saw him. Now he looked 15, maybe 16. Taller, deeper voice, aching creeping along his jawline. But it was Caleb, and I suddenly wanted to vomit. I froze. He sat down across from me like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like we'd always planned this. Then he started talking. He said he always remembered me. Said he found my photography profile a while ago and couldn't stop checking it. Said he made the Reed profile using photos of a model he found on Pinterest. Said he just wanted to talk to me. That he hadn't meant for it to go this far, but once we started chatting, he couldn't stop. I stared at the table, trying not to scream. People were around. The cafe was busy. My whole body crawled with that primal urge to run, that my legs wouldn't move. He kept explaining like this was just a quirky misunderstanding, like he thought I understand, like it was just some harmless long-distance crush. He told me he wasn't trying to be creepy. He said he just missed me. Missed me. As if this was some kind of reunion, as if tricking me into talking to him under a stranger's face was justifiable because of nostalgia. I told him to leave. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. I just told him, firmly, to go home. He looked hurt, genuinely hurt, But after a long pause, he stood up and walked out. No apology, no drama. He just left me sitting there, hands trembling around a paper coffee cup I hadn't touched. I stayed for almost an hour, just watching the door, waiting for him to come back. He didn't. That night, I got a text from the number. It said, "I'm sorry if that was weird." That was it. One sentence. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. I blocked the account on the photo app too. The next day, I locked down all my profiles, deleted most of my old photos. Not because I was scared of him stalking me, though I guess I should have been, but because of the realization itself. That someone who knew me as a kid, someone I literally gave putting cups to and helped with math homework, had grown up thinking it was okay to trip me like that. That night, I dug through an old box of photos. I found one of us together, him in pajamas, holding a bowl of popcorn, grinning with a missing tooth. I remembered him crying once because his sister ate his pudding cup. He was just a kid. And now somehow he wasn't. He was a teenage boy who built a fake man out of stolen photos just to lure me into talking to him. Every time I think about it, my skin prickles. Not because I think he'll show up again, but because I realize I'll never really know how long he'd been watching me online before I noticed, how many photos he'd saved, how many messages he typed and deleted before hitting send. And the worst part, he looked at me across that cafe table with the same wide-eyed, stubborn affection I remembered from when he was a kid. Like he still believed I was supposed to take care of him. Like he'd never let me grow up into anything but his babysitter. Except this time, I was the one who felt small. I've never been big on dating apps. I download them, swipe for a while, uninstall, rinse and repeat. I don't trust them, honestly. Everyone's either too polished, too chaotic, or too boring. But Hinge had been sitting on my phone for about 2 months, gathering dust until I matched with her. Taylor. Her profile was unreal. Gorgeous girl. Olive skin, dark curls. This confident half smile in every photo. She had that look like she always knew something you didn't. Every picture of her radiated personality. And her captions, that's what hooked me. None of that bland love to travel, looking for someone who can make me laugh garbage. Hers were sharp, playful. Stuff like, "I'll beat you at Mario Kart and gaslight you into thinking you let me win." It didn't feel fake. It felt dangerous in the best way. Like she wasn't trying to be perfect. She was trying to be interesting. And she was. We matched on a Wednesday night. I remember it vividly because I had work the next morning and told myself I'd go to bed early. Instead, I stayed up past 3 a.m. messaging her. The click was instant. None of that stilted, "What do you do for fun small talk?" We jumped straight into music, shows, weird supermarket meal deal obsessions. She matched my rhythm perfectly. Witty replies, emojis just enough to show playfulness, and this energy that made it impossible to put my phone down. The voice notes came later. I hadn't expected those. Her voice was low and confident, not bubbly like I'd imagined. The first time I listened, I played it twice. I didn't even care what she was saying. I just liked the sound of it. We messaged like that for nearly 2 weeks. Every morning before work, every night before sleep. She remembered things I told her days earlier, dropped little inside jokes only we would get. That's the kind of thing that makes you feel chosen. And then she asked to meet. It was her idea, not mine. Said she'd be in my area for work. Asked if I wanted to grab a drink. Chill vibes, nothing formal. The fact she suggested it made me even more into her. It didn't feel forced. It felt right. We picked a cocktail bar near the station. I'd been before. Trendy enough to feel fun, but not loud enough to drown out conversation. Perfect first meet territory. I showed up 15 minutes early, nervous energy buzzing through me. I kept refreshing her last message, rereading her "see you soon" like it was some talisman. Every time the door opened, my chest tightened. And then she walked in. I knew instantly. Same dark curls, same easy confidence in her stride. She was even more gorgeous in person. For once, I felt lucky. I stood up fast, heart doing backflips. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, almost glued to her shoulder, was this tall, broad guy. Bomber jacket, beard, chewing gum like he was bored out of his mind. He walked in with her step for step like this was normal. She spotted me, grinned, and came straight over. My relief lasted half a second before confusion swallowed it. I froze. She leaned across the table with that same smirk from her profile pictures and said, "This is him." He knows everything. And then she slid into the booth opposite me. The guy followed, dropping heavily into the seat beside her. He didn't say a word, just looked at me. Not angry, not amused, just watching. I blinked a few times, waiting for someone to explain. She did. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through our chat, showed me the screen like a proud parent. She started reading lines out loud, my jokes, my flirty replies, laughing at them. He leaned in to look too, nodding along like it was all part of some presentation. I sat there in a fog of disbelief. She said this was their hobby, that they did it together, catfish people for fun. Sometimes they'd even bet on how long they could keep someone hooked, or how fast they could get someone to agree to meet. Her tone was casual, like she was describing a weekend board game. "You're one of the wholesome ones," she said, smiling at me like it was a compliment. "Most guys get real gross real fast. You're sweet." Sweet, she actually said it like that. I asked if anything was real. Did she mean any of what she had said? Did she actually like the things we bonded over, or was it all a script? She tilted her head, smirked, said some of it was real. It was her in the photos, her in the voice notes. But the personality, the conversations, that was mostly for the game, for them. I couldn't tell if she enjoyed the lying more than the attention. Maybe both. The guy stayed silent the whole time, just chewing gum, smiling faintly. Not friendly, not hostile. Just this blank, unreadable presence beside her. Then she asked the kicker. "Do you want to stay for a drink?" Like it was the most normal question in the world. I stood up. My legs felt weak, but I didn't hesitate. No scene, no yelling. Just walked straight out, past the bar, past the station. I didn't stop walking for 20 minutes, my brain replaying every message, every voice note, every emoji, twisting them into something rotten. I didn't sleep that night or the laughter. It wasn't just a lie. People lie online. I had mismatched dates before. This was something else. This was being drafted into a game I didn't know existed. A private joke between two strangers who used me like a chess piece. I wasn't a person to them. I was entertainment. For weeks, I kept the screenshots of our chats like proof it had happened. Eventually, I deleted them. Not out of anger, out of exhaustion. Looking at them made my stomach churn. I don't use dating apps anymore. People say I'm overreacting, but I can't explain the feeling of sitting across from someone who smiled at me while gutting my trust for sport. And the scariest part, how normal she made it sound. Like it wasn't cruel, like it wasn't dangerous, like it was just another game. He looked close. Like the guy in the pictures, but not quite. Just enough different that it made my skin prickle. The bone structure was familiar, that strong jaw I remembered from the gym selfies he'd sent me. But in person, it was softer, sloped differently, almost warped. His teeth weren't the easy, movie star white I remembered from his grin in photos. His haircut was shorter, outdated, like something for a high school yearbook. And his posture, God, his posture told the real story. In the photos, Jamie stood straight, shoulders back, full of that casual confidence people either have naturally or fake really well. But this man looked folded inward, like he collapsed into himself years ago and never managed to climb back out. Still, he smiled at me. Not sheepishly, not apologetically, like he knew me, like he expected me to smile back. I didn't. Instead, I froze, half in the booth, half out of it, clutching my purse strap like it could tell me what to do. Let me backtrack a little. I've met Jamie on Hinge. It was more of those nights where I wasn't really looking for anything, just mindlessly scrolling after work, laughing at bad prompts and cheesy bios. His profile stopped me cold. Tall tan with this easy smile. His answers were funny without trying too hard. He wrote that the best way to win him over was to beat him at Mario Kart, but not too badly or I'll get insecure. It actually made me laugh out loud, which almost never happens on dating apps. Most guys try way too hard to sound like stand-up comics or recycle cringe quotes they think make them look deep. Not him. I swiped. We matched. And from there, it felt easy. Our chats ran long, like 5 hours long, every night. He was quick, witty, never just, "Hey, what's up?" He asked real questions, remembered the answers. He sent memes that actually landed. He even sent voice notes sometimes, his voice soft and sarcastic in a way that made everything sound funnier than it was. I played them more than once, sometimes, just to hear them again. There was only one weird part: we never FaceTimed. He'd always had a reason: bad Wi-Fi, family around. One time he said he was breaking out and didn't want to scare me off. I brushed it off. Not everyone likes video calls. And honestly, he was so attentive in text that I didn't feel the need to push it. After about a month, he asked if I wanted to meet. We settled on a pizza place halfway between us. Cheap, casual, public. Seemed safe. I even told a friend where I'd be, just in case. I wasn't completely naive. I wore black jeans and a cropped sweater. Makeup done soft, nothing too dramatic. I checked my reflection in the bathroom mirror 5 times before leaving the house. I wanted to look like myself, but the best version of myself. When I walked into the restaurant, my stomach flipped. He was already there waving. Except he wasn't. I slid into the booth, already stiff, every nerve in my body screaming something was wrong. And that's when he blurted it out. My name's not Jamie. It's Caleb. Jamie's my brother. The words came out fast, like he'd been holding them in too long. His voice cracked halfway through, but he forced out anyway, like a confession he knew he couldn't avoid. He rushed into an explanation before I could even react. Said he used Jamie's photos because nobody ever matched with his. Said when he used his own, girls ignored him. Or worse, gave him pity likes that went nowhere. But with Jamie's pictures, people laughed at his jokes. They responded to his stories. They actually wanted to talk to him. He swore it was him the whole time. Every message, every dumb meme, every late night conversation. Just not the guy in the photos. I sat there in shock, my pulse roaring in my ears. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was embarrassment. I'd let myself believe in someone who never really existed. I stared at him, trying to process. Should I walk out? Should I yell? Should I laugh at how pathetic this was? My hands shook under the table, and he must have seen because his expression crumpled. He looked like he was bracing for any of those reactions. So we kept talking. He told me he'd never had many friends. That Jimmy didn't even know he was using his pictures. That at first it was just for fun, but then I replied that I was different. I listened. I cared. I made him feel like someone worth staying up until 3 a.m. for. He said it like it excused everything, like my kindness made the lie okay. And the worst part, I cared. I told this guy things I hadn't told anyone else in months. My dumb work stories, my insecurities, my late night loneliness. I'd looked forward to his notifications like they meant something. And now I was sitting across from a stranger who didn't look like the man I thought I liked, but who swore he was the person behind the words I'd fallen for. He asked if I wanted to stay. I didn't. I stood, mumbled something like I can't, and walked out. He didn't follow. He just slumped back in the booth, staring at the table like he already knew how this story would end. When I got home, I blocked his number. Deleted the chats, the screenshots, even the voice notes I'd saved. Deleted the playlist he'd made me. I wanted it all gone. But it stuck anyway. What haunted me wasn't that he didn't look like the photos. People catfish all the time. What gutted me was that he knew he was lying every single day and chose to keep going. He said everything I wanted to hear, not because he meant it, but because he wanted someone to say it back. I was just that someone. For a while. Now when I scroll apps, I don't laugh at the funny bios. I don't believe the voice notes. I don't let myself care the way I did. Because I can't shake the image of him sitting there, folding himself smaller, confessing like it would make me stay. And maybe that's the real horror of it. Not that he tricked me, but that I almost believed him when he said he cared. Almost. I wasn't looking for anyone, really. It started with this quiet little app I downloaded on a boring night. It wasn't Tinder or Hinge or anything big like that. It wasn't even marketed as a dating app. It was more like a messy hybrid between a forum and a chat room, mostly built around fandoms and niche hobbies. Nerd stuff, games, anime, movies, weird internet rabbit holes. Think a mini Reddit, but stripped down, uglier, and with a community that seemed both too small and too obsessed. That's where I met her. Or who I thought was her. Her name was Rena. The username had numbers in it, nothing flashy. Her profile picture was black and white, kind of grainy cropped so it only showed the bottom half of her face. Just enough to suggest there was a real person on the other side. Just enough mystery to make you lean closer. Her bio said one line: "Ask me about Ghost Trick or Evangelion." That was bait for someone like me, and she had to know it. So I did. And she replied. At first, it was just surface-level nerd talk. Characters we liked, what we thought about the endings, little jokes about obscure cutscenes. But we didn't stop. For 2 straight weeks, we didn't miss a day. Our conversations stretched past the app's clunky interface, spilling into DMs, then Discord, then texts. We synced up weirdly well. Same taste in music, same obsession with old shows that nobody else remembered, even the same pet peeves about fandom culture. It wasn't just that she liked what I liked. It was that she got why I liked it. Talking to her felt like deja vu, like she was always half a step ahead of me. And the more we talked, the more the line blurred. Nerdy banter shifted into like talk. She told me she worked late shifts sometimes, that she was tired but couldn't sleep, so she liked having me to text. I admitted things I didn't usually admit, about how lonely it gets when everyone else has plans, about how silence feels heavier at night. She always had something thoughtful to say back. Always. The only thing she wouldn't do was video. She said she was shy. Said she hated cameras, hated her face on screens. I didn't push. Not everyone likes video calls. And honestly, I didn't care. She was real enough in the ways that mattered. At least I thought she was. Eventually, we started talking about meeting. I was the one who floated it, nervous, careful, trying not to sound creepy. Just coffee, in public, nothing heavy. To my surprise, she agreed. Said she was nervous, but also excited. She even picked the spot. A little book cafe tucked between a record store and a hardware shop. The kind of place that sounded like exactly her vibe. Indie quiet, tucked away from crowds. I showed up early. Ordered a drink, sat by the window. My stomach was all knots, buzzing with this weird mix of dread and hope. I kept glancing at the door, expecting at any moment to get the last-minute text. Sorry, can't make it. But then the bell over the door rang, and someone walked in. A guy. Older than me, mid-30s maybe. Beard, baseball cap, hoodie with the hands jammed into the front pocket. He looked around, spotted me, and started walking over. Not quickly, more like he was dragging himself to something he already regretted. I thought he was lost. I half turned in my seat expecting him to pass by. But he stopped at my table and said my name. I froze. He sat down across from me like it was the most normal thing in the world. And then he said it. That he was Rena. That she didn't exist. At first, I didn't believe him. I just stared at him like maybe he was some middleman, like maybe Rhea had said her brother or her roommate ahead of her, some dumb stunt to test me. I kept waiting for her to walk in behind him, but he kept talking. He said it started as a joke, not a cruel one, at least not at first. He made the account after our breakup. Didn't want to talk to anyone as himself. Didn't want to be seen as himself. So he made someone up, Rena. He said when I messaged he almost ignored it, but I kept replying, and I made him laugh. He hadn't laughed in months, so he kept it going. Just a little longer, just another night. And then another. He said he didn't expect it to get this far. Didn't expect me to suggest meeting. He tried to quit a few times, he claimed, but every time he thought about leaving, he felt guilty. And the guilt made him double down. Until finally, he convinced himself the only way to end it was to show up. As himself. He wasn't smug about it. There was no cruel grin, no gotcha. He looked wrecked. Pale, embarrassed, like someone who hadn't slept right in weeks. His voice cracked when he spoke. His hands fidgeted under the table. And that almost made it worse, because I wanted to be furious. I wanted to storm out or throw my drink in his face. But all I could do was sit there, caught between anger and sadness, and a bone-deep sense of disgust I couldn't name. I thought about the late-night texts, the in-jokes, the playlists. I thought about the way I'd felt when my phone lit up with her name. Turns out it wasn't her. It was just some guy who needed someone to listen. Who thought the only way to be heard was to wear someone else's face. I didn't finish my drink. I just stood up and left. He didn't follow me. On the walk home, I kept replaying everything in my head. His words. The little cracks in the story I hadn't noticed before. The way she always avoided video calls. The way the typing cadence sometimes shifted, but I brushed it off. I blocked him when I got home. Deleted the chats, the playlists, even the app itself. But none of it really went away. What cut deepest wasn't just the lie. Lies I could handle. It was the fact that for a few weeks, I'd actually felt like I found someone who got me. Someone who spoke the same strange language I did. And it turned out that connection was built on nothing but someone else's loneliness. I wasn't even looking for love. I wasn't even looking for anything. I just wanted someone real to talk to. I was lonely too. But at least I was honest about it. It started like most of them do. Late night scrolling, no expectations. I had just deleted and re-downloaded the app for the third time that month. You know that cycle, swearing it off, feeling embarrassed about wasting time on it, then giving it again once boredom hits. I wasn't even planning on replying to anyone. Half the time I'd swipe and then close the app, as if that counted as socializing. But then his profile showed up. Marco. That was the name he used anyway. His photos were unreal. One of those people who somehow always had the sun hitting them just right. One shot in front of the Eiffel Tower, another feeding a monkey in Bali, then one shirtless on a beach in Brazil, his skin golden, hair messy in that perfectly undone way. Usually, I roll my eyes at guys like that. The world traveler, free spirit, catch me if you can types. They either want to be influencers or they're one step away from a pyramid scheme. But something about his profile didn't scream try hard. His bio was short, casual, weirdly perfect. Where are you headed next? That line stuck. I scrolled through his photos again. I don't usually swipe right on guys who look like they belong in ads, but I convinced myself he looked chill, like he wasn't taking it too seriously. So I swiped. And he matched. And then he messaged first. He said he was between flights, stuck in some airport in Spain. He sent me a photo of his suitcase, his view from the lounge. I laughed at something he said about overpriced airport coffee, and from there it snowballed. We talked for weeks. He was funny, weirdly funny. The kind of funny that doesn't feel scripted or smug. His timing was natural. He'd poke fun at himself, or at me, or at whatever random thing we were talking about, and it just worked. He'd send me little photos, the corner of a street sign, a blurry video of a street performer, a sunset over some city skyline. Sometimes they looked almost too perfect, but I didn't notice then. I was too busy refreshing my notifications like a teenager. Sometimes we'd call. His voice was soft, a little raspy. He always made excuses not to turn on his camera. Bad Wi-Fi, noisy hostel, horror of laptop. At some point, I stopped pushing. I stopped noticing. He talked about travel constantly. Said he hadn't stayed in one place longer than a few days and years. That he got itchy when things felt too routine. I told him he sounded like a dream or a scam. He laughed and said, somewhere in the middle. And I believed him. So when he said he'd be passing through my city and wanted to meet, I didn't hesitate. We set it up. A small cafe, something low-key. He said he didn't want tourist spots or chains. Wanted something local. I got there early. I was nervous, yeah, but excited too. I chose a corner table near the window. Ordered a latte I barely touched because I didn't want foam on my lip when I first saw him. I kept fixing my hair in my phone camera, then pretending I wasn't checking the door every 5 seconds. When he finally came in, I almost didn't recognize him, because it wasn't the guy from the pictures. Not even close. He wheeled in slowly from the sidewalk. At first, I didn't even connect him to Marco. He was wearing a beanie pulled low, a heavy coat despite the warm air, and gloves he tugged at nervously. He looked around like he didn't belong, then his eyes found mine. And he came toward me. It took a second for my brain to catch up. He rolled up to the table, cleared his throat, and said my name. I'm Marco. My stomach dropped. I stared at him. Not because of the wheelchair, but because everything was wrong. His face, his build, his posture, even his voice. It was all different. Different from what I'd imagined, different from the man in the glossy photos who seemed to belong in every country at once. I asked it was a joke. My voice cracked when I said it. He shook his head. His eyes didn't leave mine. I was always me, he said. Just not the version you imagined. And he explained. He told me he'd never been to Paris or Bali or Brazil, that he hadn't traveled in over a decade, that every single photo was lifted, stolen from blogs, random Instagram posts, travel accounts he followed obsessively. He had folders on his computer organized by continent. He'd scroll, pick the ones that looked real but not too professional, and build a life from them. He said he used to travel before the accident. That's how he justified it at first. He told himself he wasn't lying. He was just borrowing from a life he used to have. But as the years passed, it stopped being about what he'd done. It became about pretending he still could. I sat there in silence. My drink was cold. My throat felt thick. He admitted he hadn't left the city in years, that the cafe we were sitting in was the farthest he'd been from his apartment in months, that he almost canceled, terrified I'd look at him and walk out immediately. And then he said the part that really stuck in my head, the part that still makes me feel nauseous when I think about it. I never meant to hurt you. The pictures were just a way in. But everything else, the conversations, the jokes, the calls, that was all real. That was me. I wanted to scream, to tell him that nothing was real if it started with a lie, that every word had been tainted by the fact he wasn't who he said he was. But I didn't scream. I just asked him why he hadn't told me sooner. He shrugged, his hands twisted in his lap. People ghost me once they know the truth. The version of me in the pictures makes people stay. And if I play the part long enough, sometimes I can forget it's fake too. That was when I felt it, that crawling, sick feeling in my chest. Because he wasn't a scammer trying to get money. He wasn't even smug about it. He was just a lonely man hiding behind a version of himself that no longer existed. And part of me hated him for it. But another part of me pitied him. I didn't say long after that. I told him I had to go. He didn't argue. Didn't beg or try to guilt me. He just nodded and said he hoped I remembered the conversations. Not the lies, not the photos, but the moments when I laughed. Even if the context was fake, he said quietly, the way I felt wasn't. I didn't answer. That night, I blocked him. Deleted the app again, swore I wouldn't re-download it this time. But sometimes I still think about it. About how much I liked him. Not the fantasy Marco in the photos, not the fake traveler, but the person who made me laugh in my kitchen at midnight. The one who told me about his favorite street food in Portugal, even if he'd never tasted it himself. It's strange realizing someone can be both real and fake at the same time. But that's what he was. Not a traveler. Not an influencer. Not even Marco. Just a man sitting in a cafe, building a world that only existed in pixels and stolen snapshots. A man who lived nowhere. I matched with her on a Thursday night just before bed. You know how it goes. One more scroll, one more match. That tiny hit of dopamine to carry you into sleep. Her name was Marissa. She stood out instantly. Her photos had this effortless kind of beauty. Soft curls spilling over her shoulders, eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass, a tiny nose ring that caught the light in every shot. She had the look of someone who knew people stared at her but didn't care. At first, I thought the profile had to be fake. Too perfect. But the photos weren't glossy, over-edited, or posed like an influencer's. They looked real. Normal. A picture of the beach in a swimsuit with her friends partly cropped out. Another blurry one at a concert, stage lights painting her face blue and red. One at brunch, sunlight hitting a plate of pancakes while she smirked at the camera. Her bio was short. Kind of a mess. Obsessed with mango smoothies. Tell me something stupid. So I did. I told her about how I once thought narwhals were mythical until I was 17, like unicorns of the sea. She replied within minutes, "You're already better than 90% of this out." And that was it. We started talking. It wasn't just flirty. It was easy, natural. She replied fast, never dry, never just lol or cool. She had this sharp humor that caught me off guard. She'd send me the worst blurry memes she found, random trivia like, bananas are technically berries, and once even a voice note of her cracking up at a joke I had forgotten I had made the day before. She said she was 26, worked in marketing, lived with 2 roommates, hated early mornings, and got weirdly defensive about cereal brands. She said Cinnamon Toast Crunch was overrated. I almost unmatched right there. But I was into it, way too into it too fast. We talked for a week straight. Morning check-ins, lunchtime rants about her boss, midnight spirals about whether pigeons were government drones. It felt like I knew her, like I'd stumbled onto someone who could slot right into my life without me even noticing. So when she suggested we meet, I didn't hesitate. Coffee. Saturday afternoon. Small cafe she picked. Said she liked the lighting in there. I didn't question it. I showed up first. Ordered a drink, picked a seat where I could see the door. Every time it opened, my chest buzzed with that nervous, excited static you only get when meeting someone from an app. Half anticipation, half dread, like gambling with your own future. The door opened again. And a woman walked in, not Marissa. Older, late 50s, maybe early 60s. Short hair with gray streaks, dark eyeliner smudge at the corners. She wore a long, flowy cardigan that trailed behind her as she moved, scanning the cafe like she was searching for someone. Then her eyes landed on me, and she smiled. I froze. She walked straight over to my table and said my name, softly like she was testing it on her tongue. Then she sat down across from me as if we'd arranged this all along. I stared at her, confused. A mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe she was lost. Maybe she thought I was someone else. I asked who she was. She smiled again, unbothered. I'm Marissa. The words made my stomach flip. I blinked, shook my head, looked at her again. This wasn't the woman in the pictures. This wasn't the girl with the curls and the nose ring. Before I could protest, she reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, opened the app, scrolled to our chat, showed me my messages, my dumb narwhal story, my memes, her replies, all of it. Then she said something I'll never forget. The girl in the photos, that's my daughter. I felt the blood drain from my face. She kept talking, calm, like this was normal, like she was explaining a recipe. She said she'd been using her daughter's photos for years, that her daughter didn't know, that at first she mixed in a few of her own pictures, blurred, angled, filtered, but eventually she just stuck to her daughter's Instagram. It got better results, she said, like she was talking about marketing metrics. I sat there, my coffee going cold, trying not to gag. She insisted she never meant to hurt anyone, that it had started as a joke, a way to pass time when she was lonely. But then people started talking to her, really talking to her, and it felt good. She said I made her feel young again. That my jokes, my questions, the way I said good morning to you when she replied hours later, it had been the highlight of her week. I wasn't pretending with you, she said. Not really. The face wasn't mine, but the words, the thoughts, that was me. That was real. I asked why she hadn't just told me the truth from the beginning. She tilted her head like I was being naive. Would you have kept talking to me if you'd seen this face? She asked, gesturing to herself. Most people don't. Most people swipe for the picture, not the person. Her tone wasn't bitter. It was matter of fact, like she had accepted it long ago. And then she leaned forward, lowering her voice, as if sharing a secret. You're one of the only ones who actually listened, who cared enough to ask me things no one else asks. That's why I wanted to meet you, because I thought maybe you'd see past it. Her eyes locked on mine, expectant, hopeful. And then she said the words that made my skin crawl. You still can, if you want to. I just stared at her. My brain couldn't process it. The calmness in her voice, the certainty, like this wasn't insane. Like pretending to be your daughter online, reeling strangers in with her face, wasn't horrifying. I muttered that I needed air. She nodded, almost motherly, like she understood. I'll wait, she said, folding her hands neatly on the table. I stood, heart pounding, and stepped outside. Walked halfway down the block before I stopped. Not because I wanted to go back, but because my hands were shaking so badly, I didn't want to look like I was running. I sat on a bench, opened the app, deleted the chat, blocked her number, logged out. My coffee buzz had turned to nausea. Later that day, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was her. She said she understood, that she wasn't mad, that she hoped I knew how much our talks had meant to her, that she hadn't lied about that part. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. But sometimes late at night, I still wonder about her daughter. Whether she ever found out, whether she knows her face is being used as bait on dating apps, whether she's still floating around in strangers' inboxes, starting conversations she never had. And whether somewhere out there, her mother is still sitting at a cafe table waiting for someone else who thinks they're meeting Marissa. You know when someone seems too perfect online, but you let yourself believe it anyway. That was me with Marco. I wasn't even in the mood to date when we matched. I'd been off the apps for a while, A detox after too many half-hearted conversations that went nowhere. But one night, restless and bored, I re-downloaded. Told myself I'd swipe a little just for the distraction, just for the ego boost. Then I saw him. Marco. Tall, dark hair, strong jaw. His photos were in black and white, but not in a pretentious way. More like he wanted to keep things understated. One shot in a suit, leaning casually against a railing. One with a big shepherd mix, grinning into the camera like it was his best friend. One sitting at a cafe table, turning over his shoulder mid-laugh. Not staged. Not cheesy. Just captivating. The kind of profile that made you pause. His bio was short. Honesty. Good coffee. Staying up late talking. Clean. Simple. Not trying too hard. I swiped right. Figured nothing would happen. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was him. From the beginning, Marco felt different. He wasn't pushy, didn't jump straight into compliments or awkward jokes. He asked questions that felt genuine, replied with thought instead of filler. Respectful, witty, measured. He said he was 35, worked in architecture, lived about 40 minutes away. His job was demanding, he told me, and he didn't date often. But he liked connecting with people who weren't afraid of real conversations. And that's exactly what he gave me. Our texts were long, winding threads that stretched from morning until I fell asleep. He remembered details, my favorite breakfast order, the fact that I'd once broken my ankle on a trampoline, how I secretly hated avocados but ate them anyway because they were good for me. He'd bring them up later almost casually, like he was keeping track of my life in a mental file. It didn't feel creepy at first. It felt flattering. Rare. He never sent voice notes, never called. He said he preferred written words, that he liked the clarity of thoughts when they're written down. At first, I thought that was beautiful. Old-fashioned, romantic. When I asked about video chatting, he rushed it off. Said his laptop camera was broken, his phone too old. Instead, he'd send selfies, carefully lit, tasteful. Always just enough to keep me satisfied, never enough to study. A smile here, a contemplative look there. I told myself not to push. I told myself people deserve their boundaries. And the truth? I liked him enough that I didn't want to risk spooking him. 2 weeks in, he asked if I wanted to meet. He suggested a brunch spot halfway between us. Said he'd be there early and to take my time. I spent an hour that morning getting ready. Picked out an outfit that felt comfortable but flattering, did my hair in a way I hadn't in ages. For the first time in a long time, I was excited about someone. Nervous in a good way. The cafe was small, bright with sunlight streaming through tall windows. I walked in right on time, scanning the tables. My stomach fluttered, bracing for that moment when I'd see him in real life. And then I froze. There was a man sitting near the window, alone, watching the door like he'd been waiting. When he saw me, he stood. And it was him, but not. The man in front of me was older, much older, late 50s, maybe pushing 60. His hair was thinning, combed carefully over the top. His belly pressed against the edge of a sweater vest. His eyes darted nervously, then softened when they landed on me. In his hands, he held a thick black binder. He walked toward me, smiling, and said my name. I blinked, stared. My mind scrambled, trying to match the polished black and white images I'd memorized to the man now standing inches away. Before I could react, he held up the binder, opened it. Inside were pages, hundreds of them. Neatly hole-punched plastic sleeves, printouts of our messages, every conversation we'd had. Some highlighted, some underlined. Notes scribbled in the margins in blue pen. Like homework, like research, like obsession. He flipped through the pages with trembling fingers, stopping at random spots. This one, he said, pointing. This was when you told me about your ankle. I loved how open you were. Another page. And this joke. You made me laugh out loud. I read this one again and again. He looked at me, eyes shining. I wanted to show you how much it meant. How much you meant. I didn't want you to think I was just passing time. I studied this. I've kept it. Because it's real. I couldn't move. My body was suspended between fight and flight, my heart pounding so loud I thought people around us might hear. Finally, I managed to croak out, "Who's in the photos?" He smiled, almost sheepish. "Just a guy I found online," he admitted. "Someone who looks the way I feel inside. I didn't think you'd talk to me if you saw me. The photos were just the wrapping. But the words, He tapped the binder with reverence. The words are the gift. I wanted to scream, to run, to vanish, but I just stood there staring at him as he kept flipping pages, showing me proof of our connection. His tone was calm, almost tender, but underneath it was a desperation that made my skin crawl. Then he looked at me with absolute sincerity and said, "So you see why this is special, right?" The cafe around me blurred. People sipping coffee, typing on laptops, completely unaware that my entire sense of reality was tilting sideways. He was still smiling, still holding the binder open like it was a love letter, waiting for my approval. I forced a weak smile, mumbled something about needing the bathroom, left my coat on the chair so it would look like I was coming back. He nodded, oblivious. "I'll be right here." I turned, walked calmly toward the back, then past the bathroom, out the front door. The second I hit the sidewalk, I didn't stop. My legs moved on their own, faster, faster, around the corner, down unfamiliar streets. I didn't check my phone, didn't look back. I just walked until my lungs burned. Later that day, my phone buzzed. It was him. He said he hoped I wasn't upset, that he understood if I needed time, that he wasn't angry. He just wanted me to know I could keep the binder if I wanted. He had copies at home. I blocked the number, deleted the app, and I haven't re-downloaded it since. But sometimes late at night, I picture that binder, sitting on his lap, pages of my words, my jokes, my life, dissected and preserved like a specimen. And I wonder how many binders there are. How many women's lives he's printed and highlighted. How many shelves are filled in his house with people who thought they were talking to Marco. It started off fun. Nothing deep, nothing emotional. Just stupid little chats with this girl named Callie, who was way too good looking to be on the same app as me. She had short dark hair, big eyes, and this permanent smirk like she already knew your joke wasn't going to land. Her profile was kind of chaotic. One mirror selfie in bad lighting, a picture of pancakes with no caption, and a blurry shot of her mid-jump on a trampoline. Her bio just said, "If you're boring, don't bother." So of course I messaged her. Callie answered fast, flirty, sharp, a little mean in that way where you couldn't tell if it was a red flag or just her humor. She roasted my playlist, made fun of my job title, accused me of being one of those oat milk guys. I should have been annoyed, but I wasn't. It was addictive, like sparring with someone who never ran out of jabs. We texted constantly for about a week. Short bursts during work, longer threads late at night. Sometimes she'd send voice notes, never longer than 10 seconds. A quick laugh, a sarcastic remark, the sound of her chewing gum. She never gave me much, but the little she did had energy. She had a rhythm to her conversations that made it feel like she was always in control. I didn't care. I liked chasing it. I liked trying to impress her. Then she said we should meet, just drinks, nothing serious. She picked a bar, a dim little place with red lighting, sticky tables, and a jukebox that only played old punk songs. She told me she'd be in a leather jacket and red lipstick, and that I'd know it was her because she looked like she hated everyone else in the room. I got there 5 minutes early, ordered a beer, and sat at the bar with my leg bouncing like a jackhammer. I wasn't expecting to like her this much, wasn't expecting the nerves. And then I saw her. Short, dark hair, big eyes, that same smirk I'd stared at a dozen times in her pictures. She walked right up to me, said my name like we'd known each other forever. I grinned. Relief hit me all at once. "Callie?" She paused, tilted her head. Then she said, calm as anything, "No, I'm Fallon. I'm her twin, but I'm the one you've actually been talking to." And then she sat down like that was normal. I froze. I mean, what have you been doing that moment? She didn't give me time to process. She waved over the bartender, ordered a whiskey sour, and turned back to me like we'd been on dates for months. She said Callie sucked at conversation and asked her to help screen matches. Said she'd been running Callie's account for weeks, maybe months. Said I was her favorite. My mouth went dry. I tried to form words, something like, "Wait, what?" But Fallon kept talking like I hadn't spoken at all. She told me she was better at keeping guys interested. That Callie got bored. That most guys dropped off after 2 days. But not me. I kept her entertained. She grinned and said it was rare to find someone worth the swap. Swap, like this was some kind of game show. She leaned in, smirk curling, and said, "So it only makes sense we'd meet, right?" Callie's not coming. She never was. I looked around the bar like maybe I'd see the real Callie walk in. Lady Fallon was setting me up for a joke. Some prank, some dare. But Fallon just sipped her drink, eyes locked on mine, looking almost bored, like she couldn't believe I was struggling to keep up. I finally asked why. Why not just use her own photos? She shrugged as if it was obvious. Said Callie got more matches. Said Fallon wasn't photogenic, and the face didn't matter anyway. The connection did, and we already had that. So what was the problem? I told her I'd matched with her sister. She corrected me. "No, you matched with me. I just used her face." Like it was no different than borrowing a jacket. Then she asked if I wanted to split an appetizer. That was the moment my body caught up with my brain. I stood up. Fala didn't flinch, didn't argue, just raised her glass, smirk still plastered on. "You're lost," she said. I walked out into the cold. My breath hung in the air, and for a second I stood there staring at the street, half convinced I'd misunderstood the entire thing. That maybe Fallon was just messing with me and Callie was about to walk in. But no text came. No explanation. Nothing. When I got home, I opened the app. Callie's profile was gone. Vanished. I searched her name. Fallon's reverse searched the photos. Nothing. Like neither of them had ever existed. I sat on my bed with the light from my phone screen burning into my eyes, trying to convince myself it was just a weird night, a bad joke, something I'd laugh about later. But it didn't feel like a joke. It felt rehearsed. Fallon hadn't seemed nervous or guilty. She wasn't fumbling through lies. She was comfortable, like she'd done this before, like she'd done this 100 times. And that's what stuck with me. Not the lie, not even the swap. It was the ease. The way she didn't just seem unbothered by my confusion, she seemed practiced at it. And I keep wondering, how many guys sat where I did? How many beers were left half finished when Fallon leaned across the table, grinning, explaining the swap like it was nothing? How many walked out confused and cold, searching for a girl who never existed? Sometimes I think about the way she looked at me, that smirk, that casual certainty that I'd fallen lying. And I wonder if maybe, just maybe, she was right. Because a part of me still wonders what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd ordered that appetizer, if I'd played along. It started like most things do now, late at night, half scrolling, just trying to feel something. I wasn't even sure what I wanted, not love, not anything serious. Just someone to talk to who didn't feel like a bot or a walking red flag. That's my match with Sophie. She looked normal, and I mean that in the best way. No filters, no forced mirror poses. Just a woman in her early 30s in a hoodie and jeans, smiling next to a cup of tea. Her bio said, child-free, independent, love long dinners and short naps. Felt real, like she wasn't trying to sell anything. We started talking the next day. She messaged first. Said she liked that my profile wasn't filled with shirtless car selfies. I laughed. We traded dumb memes for the first few days, then started texting properly. She had a dry sense of humor. Sarcastic, but not in a mean way. She told me she lived about 40 minutes outside of town. Said she worked from home doing editing stuff for a publishing company. Said she'd been single for a few years, didn't have kids, and didn't want them. I said same. We clicked on that instantly. I won't lie, she was easy to talk to. She never overshared, never made things awkward, and never ghosted. It was consistent, comfortable. I started looking forward to her messages, especially after long work days. After a couple weeks of texting, she asked if I wanted to grab dinner. Just something casual, midweek, nothing fancy. I picked a place near my area that wasn't too loud or weird, just good food and booths where you could actually talk. She said she'd drive down. Said she'd park nearby and text me when she was close. On the night of the date, I got there early, she messaged. Here. Parking now. Be inside in 2. I waited by the bar, nervous but excited. I'd already imagined the first 10 seconds. She'd walk in, we'd hug, make a dumb joke, and the awkwardness would be gone. Except that's not what happened. She walked in all right, but she didn't come alone. First thing I noticed was that she looked different. Not unrecognizable, just older. Tired. Her hair was tied back like she hadn't had time to do it properly, and she had a coat that looked like it belonged to someone else. She glanced over her shoulder before walking in like she was being followed. She walked up and smiled. I smiled back. I felt something weird in my chest. I couldn't figure it out yet. Then she sat down, opened the menu, and immediately said something I'll never forget. She said we wouldn't have long. Said her kids were in the car. I thought I misheard her. I actually blinked and laughed like maybe it was sarcasm. But then she pointed through the window behind me. I turned around slowly. There was a car parked just across the street, an old SUV, running engine, lights on, and 3 little heads in the back seat. One was staring out the window, another was holding a tablet. The third, a toddler maybe, was bouncing something on the seat. I turned back to her. She looked calm, like this wasn't insane. She said she wasn't trying to lie. Said she technically never said she didn't have kids, just that she was child-free in spirit. She said her husband worked nights, and sometimes she just needed a break, needed to feel normal again. She said dating helped her do that, even if it was just dinner, just talking. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at her like she was speaking a different language. She said she used to do this more, but it got harder once the youngest was born. Said she'd only meet guys who wouldn't try anything. Said I seemed safe. She even thanked me for being mature. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just trying to process it. The idea that this woman I had been texting with for 2 weeks, the one who said she was single and didn't want kids, had 3 of them sitting in a car seat outside while she tried to order a Caesar salad like this was some kind of therapy. I asked if she was serious. She nodded. Said they'd be fine for 20 minutes. Gave them snacks. Left the window cracked. I don't remember what I said after that. I think I stood up and said something about needing the toilet. I left cash on the table and walked out without turning around. I didn't go back to the car. I didn't check if they were still in the SUV. I just got in my own car and sat there for a full minute, staring at the steering wheel, trying to decide if I felt more creeped out or sad. I blocked her that night. Not just on the app, but on everything. She messaged once from a different number a few days later. Said she understood. Said she was sorry for not being transparent. Said I was the nicest one she'd met. I never replied. I still think about those kids sometimes. Not because they did anything wrong. They didn't even know what's happening. But because they were just there. In the back seat. Sitting in silence. Waiting. While their mom pretended to be someone else for a few minutes. Pretended to be single. Pretended to be free. And all I could think was, how many other people has she met like this? How many nights did she walk into a restaurant while her whole life waited in the car? I didn't think much of it at first. I was just swiping out of boredom after work one night, lying in bed with my hair still wet from the shower. I wasn't trying to fall in love. I just wanted someone to talk to. Maybe flirt a little. Maybe waste a night or two. Then I matched with him. His name was Tyler. Big arms. Big smile. The kind of guy who posted way too many gym selfies but somehow made it work. He had that confident but goofy vibe. Tank tops, backwards hat, standing next to weights like they were props in a music video. Normally not my type. I usually go for the quiet, nerdy ones, but something about his messages pulled me in. He was funny. I didn't expect that. He made fun of himself before I could. Called himself a protein-addicted methhead with a soft spot for rom-coms. Sent voice notes where he exaggerated how tired he was after leg day, groaning like he was dying. Told me I probably had better biceps than him, then asked for my skincare routine. It was dumb but charming. We talked for almost 2 weeks. Every day. All day. He'd send gym pics, progress shots, supposedly, and ask me for my opinion. Sometimes he'd send close-ups of his face with that fake pouty look, saying, do I look deep in thought or just constipated? I'd laugh. It felt light, easy. He didn't video call. Said his Wi-Fi sucked. Said he lived in a house with 5 other guys and privacy was rare. I didn't push it. The voice notes helped. They made it feel real. When he asked to meet, I said yes. We picked a casual burger spot. I remember spending way too long deciding what to wear. I wanted to look good, but not like I tried too hard. I kept thinking about how tall he said he was, whether I'd be able to tell in person if he skipped arm day. It was ridiculous, I know, but at the time it mattered. I showed up a little early. I scanned the place, half expecting him to already be at the back, waving with a dumb grin. But no one stood out. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. Then someone walked up to my table. He wasn't tall. He wasn't built. He wasn't wearing gym clothes. He was wearing a zip-up hoodie with a faded logo that had this awkward smile like he was bracing for impact. He said my name. And then he said it. He said he was the one I'd been talking to. That Tyler was his best friend. That Tyler had let him use his pictures. Said it wasn't meant to go this far. Said he was the one behind the messages, the jokes, the voice notes. He even said, but I'm the one you connected with, right? I just stared at him. He was swaying. Not like nervous damp, full-on forehead sweat. His hands were shaking a little. He kept pulling on his sleeves and then tucking his hands under the table. His voice, completely different from the voice notes. Higher, faster, more breathy. I don't know, I missed it. He said he'd done the voice notes with an app. Took pieces of Tyler's real voice and stitched them into sentences. He sounded proud of it, like he figured out a clever trick, not told a huge lie. He said he wasn't trying to deceive anyone, that he just wanted someone to like him, but no one swiped on his actual photos. That Tyler was in on it, that he was cool with it. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't move. Not yet. I felt frozen, not scared, just stuck in this weird fog of embarrassment and confusion, like I'd walked into the wrong movie and didn't know whether to stay seated or sneak out. He kept talking. Said I was the only person who talked to him like a human. Said most girls match after a few days. That was funny. That I made him laugh for real. That this was the first time he felt like maybe someone could like him for who he was underneath it all. But I didn't know him. Not really. I didn't know his name, his voice, his photos, his height, his face. Everything I thought I liked was a mask. I finally stood up. Said I needed to go. He didn't follow me, didn't beg, he just nodded. Said he understood. Said he was sorry. Then asked if we could still text. I didn't answer. I walked out, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. I felt like everyone in the restaurant knew, like they'd all watched the whole thing go down, like the entire room had been in on the joke and I was the punchline. I deleted the app on the way home. He messaged me later that night. Said he hoped I got home okay. Said he didn't regret the messages, even if the photos were fake. Said we still believed the connection was real. I didn't reply. It wasn't even anger, just empty. Because I'd laughed, I'd smiled at my phone. I'd stayed up late reading his dumb gin jokes and thinking someone out there actually saw me. And now all of that was a memory wrapped around a face that was never his. And he still sat across from me like that was enough. Like a few jokes and borrowed pictures made it okay. This one still messes with my head sometimes. Not because of what happened exactly, but because of how normal it all felt, right up until it didn't. It started on Hinge. Her name was Ava. She had blonde hair, kind eyes, and this easy, low-effort look that made her stand out. Oversized flannels, no makeup heavy photos, mirror selfies in dim lighting. She looked like the kind of person who laughed at her own texts. Her bio said she liked long walks, breakfast food at night, and talking to people who overthink everything. I swiped right because it felt relatable. I overthink everything. When we matched, she messaged first. That alone made me pause. Most people don't bother, but Eva did. She was quick, witty, sharp without trying too hard. Her texts felt like thoughts she'd had out loud, not rehearsed, not forced. We fell into conversation easily. Music, movies, random hypothetical questions. Would you rather forget every book you've read or every song you've ever heard? Things like that. And she cared about my answers. She had a way of making me feel like even my dumbest responses mattered. She was funny too, but not in a look how clever I am kind of way. Just naturally funny. Honest. That's the word I kept circling back to. She felt honest. Her profile only had 3 pictures. That probably should have been a flag, but I didn't question it. The shots weren't staged. They weren't filtered. No heavy angles, no fake model smiles. Just a girl in flannel with messy hair and soft lighting. Someone who didn't care if her room looked cluttered in the background. Someone who seemed real. We talked for 2 weeks straight. She always answered even if hours passed. Sometimes she'd apologize for being busy. Other times she'd just jump right back into the thread like no time had passed at all. She said she wasn't big on social media. Didn't like photos. Didn't really do video calls. The usual stuff I didn't push. Not everyone is into that. And truthfully, I like the mystery. Then she asked to meet. She picked a park in a town about 25 minutes away. Said it was quiet, that she liked walking there to clear her head. It was specific enough to feel real, casual enough to feel safe. I got there early, of course. Clean hoodie, fresh trainers. Nervous energy buzzing through my arms as I sat on a bench near the entrance. I texted her that I was there. Her reply came quick. Give me 2 minutes. I'm almost there. I looked up every time someone passed. A couple with a stroller. Teenagers on bikes. A guy with a golden retriever that practically dragged him along the path. Then an older man walked toward me. Gray jacket. Wire-frame glasses. Short beard streaked with gray. Mid-50s maybe. He looked like somebody's dad or a history teacher. Normal. Too normal. He stopped in front of me and gave me this awkward half smile. Then he said my name. I froze. Yeah. And he said, Ava doesn't exist, but I still think we could be friends. At first, I'd honestly thought it was some kind of prank. That he was joking or maybe he confused me for someone else. My brain scrambled for explanations that would make sense. But then he sat down next to me. Calm. Steady. Like this wasn't insane. And he started talking. He said he'd been using Ava's profile for a while. That he made it after his divorce when he realized how hard it was to meet people his age. Said it wasn't about dating, not really, it was about talking. Conversations, jokes, sharing feelings. He said pretending to be Ava made it easier. That no one wanted to open up to a middle-aged man about his favorite albums or whether people can really change. But through her, through the girl in the flannel, people listened. People cared. And some like me stayed. He said he meant everything he'd told me. The music wrecks, the dumb questions, the late-night rambles about scrambled eggs at midnight. All him. He said he really had laughed at my memes. That the words had been real even if the girl wasn't. And he told me where the photos came from. An old Flickr account. Random shots with no names attached. He thought it was harmless because she was faceless to him. Just an aesthetic. I sat frozen. Not because I thought he was going to hurt me. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't even angry. He just wanted me to stay. He pulled up 2 paper cups. Coffee. I brought these, he said. I thought we could just hang out, as me this time. I told him no. My voice cracked a little when I said it, but I meant it. He nodded like he expected that answer. Didn't argue. Just handed me the coffee anyway, stood up, and walked away. And that was it. I sat there another 20 minutes, staring at that untouched cup like it could explain what had just happened. But it didn't. He never messaged me again. I blocked the Ava profile, reported it. I knew it probably wouldn't go anywhere. The photos were fake, but the chats were real. And that was what messed me up the most. Because I wasn't even mad at first. I was disappointed. Not in him. In myself. I had opened up. Told Ava things I hadn't told friends I'd known for years. I felt understood in a way I didn't get often. And it turned out that the person who understood me wasn't who I thought. It wasn't a girl in a flannel with kind eyes. It was a quiet, lonely man who thought we could still be friends because he liked the version of me that talked to her. Sometimes I wonder if he still does it. If Ava is out there right now, chatting with some other guy about books and breakfast food and heartbreak, if she's making someone else feel seen. And I wonder which is worse. If that guy shows up. Or if he doesn't. I wasn't expecting much when I downloaded the app again. Honestly, I never do. Dating apps feel like slot machines. Pull a lever, swipe a few times, see if you get lucky. But I had just moved to a new city, started a new job, and found myself eating dinner alone too many nights in a row. The kind of nights where the silence gets so heavy you start filling it with noise just to feel less strange. So I figured why not. I wasn't even dressed up in my profile pictures. Just me in a hoodie, sitting on the floor of my flat eating noodles. That's where I was at. Nothing polished. No effort to look like I was living some Instagram lifestyle. Just me. Then came Eli. He messaged me first, which already put him in rare company. Most guys on there either don't bother or they send 3 fire emojis and then vanish like they were never real to begin with. But Eli wrote an actual paragraph. A whole piece about my bookshelf in the background of one of my pictures. He asked what my favorite recent read was. When I told him, he replied like he actually looked it up. Said he'd read the sample chapter. Told me it reminded him of something he'd read when he was younger. That's how it started. Simple. We talked every night for almost a month. Not constant, not suffocating, but enough that he started to feel familiar. Safe. Like someone I could text when work sucked, or when I couldn't sleep, or when I just wanted a voice outside of my own head. He always replied thoughtfully. Not just "Dan, that sucks," but actual suggestions or weird stories that made me laugh. His profile had a few photos. Cute guy, quiet looking. Floppy brown hair, soft eyes, the kind of warm smile that made you think he wasn't trying too hard. He wore a denim jacket in every picture, like it was his signature move. He didn't have social media yet, he said. Deleted it all to be more present. I didn't question it. If anything, it made him more appealing. He seemed like the kind of person who wasn't chasing likes or followers, just existing. He didn't do video calls. Said his front camera was cracked, but he offered voice notes. They were short, a little quiet, but they sounded real. The kind of voice that belonged to a barista you develop a crush on just from the way he said your name when he handed over a latte. Calming. Thoughtful. I replayed a few of them when I couldn't sleep. Not in a weird way, just because it felt good to have someone's voice in the room with me. Eventually, he asked to meet. He said he wasn't great with crowds and asked if we could meet somewhere quieter. A small park in the next town over. He described it in detail. A bench under a tree where he liked to sit and read. It sounded romantic in a low-effort, unpretentious way. So I said yes. I got there early. Nervous, but mostly excited. It didn't feel like the other dates I've been on before. The forced small talk, the awkward silences. This one felt like it could actually go somewhere. I kept imagining what he looked like walking toward me. How tall he'd be. If his smile would look the same in motion. I saw someone coming from across the field. My stomach jumped. But it wasn't Eli. It was a woman. Mid-40s maybe. Long cardigan that trailed in the wind. Hair pulled back into a bun. She was walking slowly, holding a phone in both hands like it was something fragile. Her face was tight, tired. Maybe from crying, maybe from not sleeping. Either way, she looked worn down. She stopped in front of me and said my name. Not like a question. Like she already knew. I froze. Confused. I thought maybe she was his relative. Maybe Eli had gotten in an accident or something had happened last minute, and he'd sent her to explain. My brain was already spinning scenarios to make sense of it. But no. She said it was her. She was Eli. At first, I couldn't even process the words. She just stood there, cardigan blowing against her legs, eyes fixed on me, and kept talking. She said she used the photos because she didn't think anyone would talk to her otherwise. That she'd found them years ago on some old modeling portfolio. That the voice notes weren't real. They were AI, generated from a website where she could type and it would speak. She said she'd just been lonely. Lonely. Like that explained everything. Like pretending to be someone else for weeks. Listening to me open up about my life, about my stress, all the stupid little things that made me laugh, was excusable because she was sad. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even stand up. I just stared at her, the phone clutched in her hands like it was still connected to him. To the boy in the denim jacket. The boy who never existed. I asked her why she picked me. She said I was kind. She said I made her feel like she was someone worth talking to. I don't know what I was expecting her to say, but it wasn't that. I told her I needed to go. She nodded, said she understood. Said I was the nicest person she'd ever catfished. Then she sat down on the bench under the tree. The one she described. The one where Ely supposedly read books. I walked back to my car in a thought. Everything around me felt surreal. The sound of kids playing in the distance, birds chirping in the trees, the gravel crunching under my shoes. It all kept happening like normal, but none of it felt real. like the world hadn't gotten the memo that something had just broken inside me. I drove home on autopilot. I couldn't remember a single turn I took. That night, I deleted the app. I didn't tell anyone for weeks. How do you even explain something like that? Because technically, nothing happened. No crime, no yelling, no scene. Just a conversation with a stranger. But it still fractured something in me. It made me question every laugh I'd had with him. Every time I stayed up late because I didn't want the conversation to end. Every small moment where I thought, finally, someone gets me. I wasn't seen. Not really. Yuli wasn't real. And she knew that the whole time. She said she was just role-playing. Like I was a side character in some game she was playing alone. But I wasn't playing. And that's what I can't shake. Okay, so I'm not one of those guys who expects models to swipe on me. I'm average. I've got a decent beard and can make people laugh, but I'm not turning heads at Tesco. So when I matched with this woman named Brielle, I kind of assumed it was a mistake. She was tall, clearly athletic, crazy toned arms, big curly hair, and this really sharp jawline. Just looked like she belonged on a fitness mag cover. Her profile had 5 photos, all different outfits, same woman in each. Beach, gym, one mirror, selfie, a photo with a smoothie, the works. She smiled in a way that made you want to say something clever back. So yeah, I messaged her. I figured it wouldn't go anywhere, but she replied, fast. And she wasn't dry or robotic either. She joked, she teased me. She roasted me about my Spotify playlists after I sent a screenshot. It felt real. The only weird thing was that she only had one video on her profile and it was old, like it had the TikTok watermark from 2020. It was short, just her dancing, nothing too flashy. I'd noticed but brushed it off. I didn't want to ruin it by being paranoid. We talked for almost 2 weeks. Voice notes, dumb memes, weird inside jokes. She'd always say stuff like, you better not be shorter than me, or I need a guy who can actually keep up with me on hikes. I made jokes back, said I was born to carry snacks and look lost. She said she worked part-time at a gym, but mostly freelance doing graphic design. That she was always tired, so she didn't like long calls. Fair enough. I don't love video calls either, so we stuck to texts and occasional audio messages. Eventually, she suggested meeting up. She said she had a cousin's birthday party in my area and could stop by afterward. Just a quick coffee. Casual. I picked a small place near my street. Thought it'd be nice and safe. I was nervous in the good way. Like, I kept brushing lint off my hoodie and checking my phone every 10 seconds. I even Googled first date questions that don't sound forced. That's where I was mentally. I got there early. She was already 5 minutes late. Then 10. Then 15. I was just about to text her when someone walked in. Short, round face, shoulder-length hair and a messy ponytail, baggy jumper, holding a water bottle like she wasn't sure if she wanted to be there or not. She looked right at me, smiled nervously, walked over. I was about to say I thought she had the wrong guy when she said my name. I said, yeah. And then I kind of just stared at her because she looked vaguely like the woman in the photos, but also not, like if you squinted or maybe compared baby photos. She sat down before I could say anything and said something I'll never forget. Those are my cousin's pictures, but I'm the one you've been talking to. She's just more photogenic. I didn't even know what to say. I thought maybe she was joking or testing me, but then she just started chatting like nothing was wrong, like this was a totally normal setup, like using your cousin's photos to date strangers was the same as picking a good filter. She said she'd used Brielle's photos for years, not just with me, but in general. She said she didn't think she was catfishing because she never said the pictures were her, which makes no sense at all. She literally said she was Brielle. She wrote it in her bio. I sat there in this weird state of polite shock. I kept nodding like a robot while she talked about music and the gym and whether I wanted to split a muffin. She didn't even seem that weird, just awkward, nervous, like a girl on a real first date. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been tricked, and she was pretending it wasn't a big deal. I finally asked why she didn't just use pictures of herself. She said people didn't respond when she did, that her cousin gave her permission, that she wasn't trying to lie, just get past the part where people judge your face before they know your brain. And then she smiled like she expected me to say that it was fine. But it wasn't fine, because it wasn't about how she looked. I didn't care that she was shorter or didn't have gym arms, or wore baggy jumpers instead of crop tops. It was the fact that none of it was her. Not the photos, not the brow jokes, not the gym schedule, not the flirty back and forth about being tall and intimidating. That whole connection I felt, it wasn't real. It was just a voice behind borrowed pictures, hoping the feelings would carry over into the truth. I told her I needed to go. She said she understood. She said it always ended like this. And then she smiled again. This weird, resigned smile, and just sat there while I got up and left. I didn't block her. Not because I forgave her, but because I didn't want to pretend she was fake anymore. She messaged me a few days later. Just said, I get it. I didn't reply. The photos are probably still out there on some other profile, still tagged as Braille, still leading people in with long legs and beach sunsets and smoothies in glass jars. But the voice, the one who made me laugh and made fun of my playlists, that wasn't Braille. That was someone else entirely. I wasn't even trying to date when I met him. Not seriously. I had a profile up just to feel something honestly. Swipe a little after work, maybe flirt, maybe laugh at the weird messages. It was more habit than hope at that point. So when I matched with James, I wasn't expecting anything. But he surprised me. He looked like he was in his early 30s. Sharp features, soft stubble, button-up shirts in most of the pictures. The kind of guy who probably drank red wine and actually read books, not just post about them. His profile said he liked history, antiques, jazz, which sounded like a fake personality but somehow worked. His messages were calm, polite, almost formal. No pickup lines, no emojis. Just normal. I'd gotten so used to being called Y or cutie by guys who didn't know how to spell it. James' messages felt like an adult was talking to me. And it felt good. Like I was being taken seriously. He told me he lived alone in a quiet part of town. Said he was a writer. He used big words sometimes, but not in a look how smart I am way. More like he just talked like that. Our combos were never flirty at first, just long and thoughtful. Books, movies, stuff about time passing too fast, regret, memory, that kind of thing. Eventually, I caught myself waiting for his messages, smiling when his name popped up. I'd screenshot the things he said and send them to my friend like, why is this guy making me feel like I'm in a novel? He said he didn't like video calls. Said his camera didn't work, which I've heard before a million times, but I let it slide. We sent voice notes, though. His voice was deep and slow, kind of gravelly but soothing. I figured maybe he smoked or just had that kind of tone. His photos were always tasteful, nothing weird, no gym pics, no mirrors, just shots of him in quiet cafes, museums, old libraries, sometimes sitting near a window with a coffee. Always black and white. I figured maybe he was just into aesthetics. When we finally decided to meet, I was nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. Like first date in high school nervous. He suggested a small art gallery tucked behind a bookstore downtown. Said it was quiet, wouldn't be too crowded, and we could actually talk. I showed up early like I always do. Wore a nice jacket, did my makeup like I actually cared. I kept checking my reflection in my phone camera, wondering what he'd think. I'd imagined it a dozen times, and leaning in, saying something clever, that calm smile. But none of that happened, because the man who walked up to me was easily pushing 70. I didn't even clock it was him at first. I just noticed this older guy walking straight toward me, kind of slow, holding a book in one hand like it was a prop. I looked past him, thinking James was behind him or nearby. But then he stopped, looked me straight in the eyes, and smiled. He said my name. I felt like I forgot how to breathe. His hair was thin and white around the edges. His skin had that sagging texture you don't notice until it's right in front of you. His hands looked like paper, dry, wrinkled, bony. His smile was the same shape as the pictures, but stretched differently, like it didn't fit the same way anymore. I just stood there, frozen. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. And then, as if he already knew what I was thinking, he said, "It's still me. I just didn't want to be judged for my age. Still me." Those words bounced around in my head like a rubber ball, over and over. He said he used photos from decades ago because people wouldn't talk to him otherwise. Said he was tired of being ignored, that people his age were invisible. that this was the only way to start the conversation. He looked proud of himself, calm, like this whole thing was just a small misunderstanding, and now we could move on and enjoy each other's company, like he hadn't lied to me every single day for weeks. He even said he hoped I wasn't too shocked. I told him I needed the bathroom and walked straight out the front door. I didn't even run. I just walked fast enough to feel like I was escaping something, but not so fast that I looked panicked. My hands were shaking when I got to the bus stop. I sat there for 10 minutes without moving, trying to figure out what just happened. Trying to figure out if I'd missed something. Ignored a red flag, but I didn't. He was smart. Careful. Every detail felt believable until it wasn't. I blocked him on everything that night, but a few days later, I got a letter in the mail. A real letter. No return address, just my name written in perfect cursive. It was short, just a page. He said he wasn't angry, that he understood why I left, that he still thought our conversations were real, even if the photos weren't. And he ended it by saying he'd do it all again, because the connection was worth it. I threw it away, but not before reading it twice, just to be sure I wasn't misreading what he really meant. I wasn't. The part that messed me up the most wasn't that he was older. It's that he planned it. Not just the lie, but how to lie. The slow way he built trust, the soft tone, the quiet language, all designed to feel safe, smart, familiar, just close enough to real that you start doubting your own gut. And the way he looked at me when he said it still me. Like I owed him something for the honesty, even though it came at the very end. I didn't think I'd get a match like her. Like, not in a bitter, ugly way, just in a realistic way. Most girls I match with are normal, chill, maybe a little sarcastic. But this one, she looked like she lived at a beach and got paid to hold iced coffee and slow-mo ads. Her name was Karina. Blonde, perfect teeth, tan skin, sharp jaw. One of those girls who looked expensive without even trying. Her profile wasn't packed with weird inspirational quotes or song lyrics either. Just a few photos, all different enough to seem real, and a simple line. DM me if you're not a weirdo. I wasn't expecting a response when I messaged her, but she replied almost immediately. Her tone surprised me. It wasn't cold or short. It was funny. She had sarcasm, knew dumb movie references, even made jokes about reality shows I pretended not to watch. I started thinking maybe she was just really down to earth for someone who looked like that. We talked for about a week. No video chats, which I noticed, but I didn't want to come off clingy. She said her camera was cracked. Fair. She sent me a few mirror selfies instead. Slightly different lighting than the ones on her profile. Still stunning. Still her. Eventually, she said we should meet. She picked a low coffee place just outside the city, public, chill, nothing weird. I was nervous as hell. Took extra time getting ready. Double-checked my breath like 5 times in the car mirror. I even got there early and kept refreshing the chat just in case she canceled last minute. She didn't. But she didn't arrive either. Instead, a different girl walked in. She looked nervous. Small frame, kind of hunched shoulders, long sleeves even though it was warm out. No makeup, her hair was up in a messy bun. Her eyes scanned the place like she was expecting someone to jump out and tell her to leave. She walked up to me slowly, real slow. Then she smiled, sort of, and said my name. I had no idea what to say. I think I blinked, nodded, maybe tried to smile back, but it was awkward. I figured maybe she was a friend of Karina's or something. Maybe she was here to say there'd been a delay. But no, she sat down across from me and said real soft. That's my sister's account. But I'm the one you fell in love with, right? My brain just stopped working for a second. I didn't know how to respond. I thought maybe it was a prank or a setup, but she wasn't laughing. She looked scared, like she knew she'd done something wrong but couldn't help it. Her hands were shaking a little as she tucked them under the table. I just asked her name. She said her name was Danny, short for Danielle, said Karina was her older sister, that all the photos were real, just not her. She'd been using her sister's account for months, said she didn't think I'd actually want to talk to her if she'd used her own pictures, so she used Karina's instead. Started off as a joke, then couldn't stop. She said she kept thinking I'd ghost once I figured it out. But when I didn't, when I kept replying and making her laugh, She started feeling like maybe I wasn't like other guys, like maybe I'd see past the photos if I just got to know her. So she decided to meet me. And apparently this had worked before. She told me she'd done this once already. Met a guy using her sister's photos. That one didn't go so well, she said. He'd gotten angry, said she wasted his time, called her names. That's why she was so nervous this time. But the way she said it, so calm like it was totally reasonable, it freaked me out more than if she cried or made a scene. I didn't yell at her. I didn't even finish my drink. I just told her I needed to go. She asked if she could walk me in my car. I said no. She didn't beg, didn't follow me, just stayed sitting there, twisting her fingers in her lap. In the car, I sat there for 10 minutes before driving. I didn't know what to feel. Embarrassed? Angry? Sad? It wasn't even about how she looked. It was the fact that none of the connection I felt was based in truth. I had fallen for someone who didn't exist. The messages, the jokes, the inside references, sure they were hers, but they came wrapped in someone else's face. Every compliment I gave, every message I saved, was aimed at a person who was never real. I blocked the account that night, but a few days later I got an email. Just one line. I told my sister you were the only one who didn't call me disgusting. No name, no attachments. Just that. I never replied. Every now and then I still see that original Karina profile pop up under different usernames. Slight variations, but always the same photos. Same lighting. Same red lipstick. Sometimes it's Lena. Sometimes it's C. Once it was just with no name at all. I don't report them anymore. I just swipe left. But every time I do, I wonder if she's still sitting at that coffee shop, wondering who's next. This happened 2 years ago, and I still think about it way too often. It sneaks back into my head at the strangest times. Brushing my teeth, waiting for the microwave, zoning out in traffic. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. The memory just slides in, uninvited, like a shadow under a locked door. I haven't touched a dating app since. His name was Liam, or at least, that's what the profile said. We matched on Bumble. He was 26, supposedly. His photos were casual, baggy hoodies, dark curls that looked soft enough to touch, a face that was more kind than striking. Not hot, not model material, but approachable, safe. The kind of guy who probably listened to sad music while making tea on rainy afternoons. His bio said he was shy but loved books and nature. Said he was looking for someone calm. That part hooked me. Too many matches that I had before were with guys who tried too hard. Corny jokes, cocky one-liners, the same recycled swipe right or miss out garbage. Liam felt different. He messaged me first, just a simple hi with a smile emoji. It was almost laughably plain, but I liked it. There was something refreshingly low stakes about it. We talked for about 3 weeks. He wasn't overly chatty, but when he did respond, it felt deliberate, like he was actually paying attention. He asked about my cat and remembered her name. He sent voice notes sometimes. His voice was quiet, deliberate, almost a half whisper, the kind of voice you'd imagine from someone who blushed easily. He said he still lived at home, saving for his own place. Said he helped his dad around the house, repainting walls, fixing furniture, yard work. It fit the image I already built of him, a reserved, good-natured guy who could probably read poetry he never admitted to. We never video chatted. I nudged toward it once, lightheartedly. He brushed it off, said he hated how he looked on camera. Said he had a bit of complex about his face. I didn't push. I had those days too. I figured maybe he had acne scars or didn't like his nose. It didn't matter. He sent selfies though, always casual. Hoodie up, soft lighting. Some looked a little older, not childhood, but like they'd been sitting at a hard drive for a while. His hair length shifted between them, and in some, he looked almost younger than his stated age. I brushed it off. People recycle pictures all the time. Eventually he asked to meet. He said he finally felt comfortable. Suggested I come by his place since his dad would be out. We'd hang out, maybe cook, nothing fancy. I hesitated. I don't usually go straight to someone's house, but I convinced myself it was fine. He felt safe. His messages felt safe. It was a Sunday afternoon, cold but sunny. His neighborhood was quiet and tidy, small houses with trimmed hedges, wind chimes clinking softly in the breeze. His place had a white gate, a little garden with potted plants, and a porch that looked like it belonged to a retired couple. Picturesque, not threatening. I remember thinking, this doesn't feel like the kind of place where bad things happen. I rang the bell. Footsteps. A pause. The door opened, and my stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my knees. It wasn't Liam. The man standing there was older, much older, mid-50s at least. Balding, tall, with a soft belly under a faded jumper. His jeans were worn at the knees. His face was calm, almost pleasant, as if I'd knocked at the wrong address and he was about to kindly redirect me. For a moment I thought maybe this was Liam's dad. That Liam was just upstairs about to come down. That this was some misunderstanding. But then he smiled. Not warmly, not creepily either. Just casually. Relaxed like this wasn't strange at all. I asked if Liam was home. He looked at me steadily and said words I'll never forget. There's no Liam here. I just used the photos to start the conversation. I froze. I thought he was joking. I waited for him to laugh, to admit he was messing with me. My brain scrambled for rational explanations. Maybe Liam was real and this was some kind of weird test. Maybe the dad set up the profile for him as a prank. None of it made sense. He stepped aside slightly, holding the door open. Told me I could come in. Said we could talk. I didn't move. My feet felt nailed to the porch. He wasn't flustered. He wasn't defensive. He didn't apologize or stumble over words. He just explained as calmly as if he were telling me the Wi-Fi password. I asked who was in the photos. He said, just some guy I found online. Then he added something that chilled me deeper. I chose someone who seemed soft, so it wouldn't scare people off. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. My legs felt stiff, unresponsive. I glanced past him, trying to see into the house. It wasn't messy or dark. It wasn't a horror movie scene. It looked normal, cozy even. Bookshelves lined the wall, a lamp with a soft yellow glow, a cat bed tucked in the corner. Normalcy made it worse, because it meant there was no obvious danger. Nothing to justify how badly I wanted to run. He said he hadn't meant to lie, that this was the only way to talk to people like you. Then he looked at me steady and said, I didn't think you'd actually come. Most of them don't. Something in me snapped to survival mode. I backed away, not running, just moving, slow, controlled, as if any sudden motion would change the outcome. He didn't follow, didn't raise his voice. Just stood there, and still resting on the door, as casual as ever. When I reached my car, I unlocked it with shaky hands and slid inside, shutting the door fast. For a moment, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring through the windshield in silence. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. Just one line. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I blocked him immediately. I don't know his real name. I don't know if that house was even his or if someone else lived there too. I don't know how many other people he's lured in. How many messages he's sent under different faces. But what gets me isn't what I don't know. It's what I do. The calmness. The complete absence of panic or guilt. Like it wasn't the first time. Like it was a routine. Pretend to be someone else. Reel him in. See who shows up. And I'll never stop wondering. What if I had gone inside? I matched with her on Facebook dating. Yeah, I know, already sounds like a bad idea. I wasn't even trying to date seriously at the time. I just moved back to my hometown, barely unpacked, job hunting, bored out of my mind, and figured why not. It's not like I was getting matches on the other apps anyway. Her profile caught my eye because she looked perfect. Not in a fake way, just in that over-polished, this girl definitely has a skincare routine kind of way. Every photo looked like it belonged in a magazine shoot. Bright lipstick, big lashes, flawless lighting. She wore old-school outfits, like vintage fur coats and pencil skirts, and had this vibe like she stepped out of a 50s movie, but still somehow used TikTok. Her name was Ray. Just Ray. No last name, which was weird but not unheard of on those apps. She messaged first, which surprised me, that I looked sweet, not hot. Not handsome, sweet. I remember that word sticking out. Felt more personal, I guess. She said she was into photography and fashion, and that she used to model back in the day. I didn't ask how far back. Our chats were all over the place. Sometimes deep, sometimes short and flirty. She didn't text like most girls I talked to online. She used full sentences, spelled everything right, always replied within minutes. I started looking forward to seeing her name pop up, especially at night. She'd message around midnight, say she couldn't sleep, and we'd talk until 2 or 3 in the morning. She told me she'd been out of the scene for a while and was just easing back into life. I didn't think too hard about what that meant. I figured maybe she had a breakup or took time off work or something. She never mentioned a job, just said she was between things. The photos made it hard not to catch feelings. She just looked cool. Confident, like she knew who she was. And I was tired of dating girls who acted like they were too busy to be human. Ray made me feel seen. She asked about my past in ways that didn't feel forced. Wanted to know my favorite movie from childhood, what I missed about my old neighborhood. She remembered little details I told her days earlier. It got in my head. After about 2 weeks, she asked to meet. She suggested a diner on the edge of town. Said it was quiet and wouldn't be overstimulating. I didn't ask what she meant by that either. When I got there, I was early. Nervous, obviously. I kept scrolling through her photos on my phone like some freak, just to calm myself down. That smile. The red lips. The dramatic lighting. I remember thinking she was too good to be real. Turns out I was right. She walked in 5 minutes late, and I didn't recognize her. No joke. I literally thought she was someone's aunt who got lost. She looked older, like a lot older. Not just different from the photos, different person level. Her hair was short and uneven like someone had cut it in a hurry. Her skin was tired looking like she hadn't had a proper night's sleep in months. The makeup was minimal. Her eyes darted around the room like she was waiting for someone to follow her in. She looked tense, like she hadn't relaxed in years. And she walked right up to me, smiled like nothing was weird, and said my name. I didn't even know what to do. I stood there awkwardly and gave her a side hug. Her coat was cheap, like one of those thin knockoff things from the market. She sat down and started talking like we'd been dating for months. Just launched into how happy she was to finally see me in person. I didn't ask why she looked nothing like her profile. I was still trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Maybe the pictures were older. Maybe she was sick, maybe. I don't know. My brain was doing mental gymnastics trying to keep things polite. But halfway through her coffee, she just said it. Flat out, no shame. She told me she'd gotten out of prison 2 weeks ago. Said it like she was telling me she'd just come back from a long holiday, like it was nothing. She smiled when she said it too. Said she'd used the glamour shots from years ago because she didn't want people judging her based on how she looked now. I couldn't even speak, just stared at her, waiting for a punchline that never came. She said she used to be a stylist, used to have her own little studio, and the photos were from that time, back when she still had things under control. She didn't go into detail about why she went inside, just said she was trying to rebuild, and that people were too obsessed with timestamps. She called herself a blank slate. I was frozen. I remember stirring my drink just to do something with my hands. I wasn't scared of her exactly, but I felt like I'd walked into someone else's life, like this wasn't my date anymore. It was something that belonged to her, and I just got assigned the role of listener. I left as politely as I could. Told her I had a thing. She hugged me again before I could stop her. Said she hoped we could keep talking. That she liked me because I wasn't judgy like the others. When I got home, I blocked her. Then I Googled her first name and the town she mentioned during our chats. It took a while, but I found it. A tiny local news article from 5 years ago, mugshot and all. Her face looked exactly like how she showed up at the diner. The charge was fraud. Not like minor stuff either. She'd been stealing money from people she worked with. Stylists, photographers, small businesses. Thousands disappeared with it. One of the victims had posted a blog about it, warning people not to trust her if she ever popped back up. And now she was out, on Facebook dating. Still using the same edited pictures, same lipstick, same poses. I deleted the app that night. Now and then I wonder how many other people she's met since. If she just keeps cycling through new guys, recycling the same glamorous shots, reusing her old lines about jazz and photo shoots. And the scariest part. She wasn't unstable. She wasn't twitchy or wild or obviously off. She was smooth, charming, like someone who knows how to play the part. She knew exactly what she was doing. Okay, so I've had some weird dating app stuff before. Costing, sure. A guy pretending to be 6 feet tall who turned out to be like 5'3". Classic, but this was different. Not funny weird, just messed up. Every now and then I still check Google to make sure he's really where he says he is. And he is. Still there. So, it started with a hinge match. He looked legit, like button-up shirt, good lighting, normal poses. Not the gin selfies or dog filter guys I was used to. He said his name was Daniel. Smiled like someone who had nothing to prove. His bio said he was a doctor, liked playing chess, cooking Italian food, and that he was a big believer in quiet mornings. I remember that line exactly. We started talking, honestly. He was smooth. Not like cheesy smooth, just calm. Confident. He'd ask questions and actually listen. Like when I said I couldn't eat dairy, he followed it up the next day by asking if I'd ever tried oat ricotta. That kind of memory made him feel serious, thoughtful, grown. He told me he worked at a trauma unit and was on night shifts often. That explained the weird hours. He'd text around 3 a.m., always starting with you awake, but never in a gross way. More like he just wanted to talk to someone. Sometimes he'd call too. Just audio, never video, but I figured it was because he was in scrubs or tired or whatever. We talked for almost 3 weeks, every single day. He sent pictures of his meals, his cat, his desk setup. All looked pretty standard. He had this habit of sending voice notes instead of long texts. His voice was deep, kind of slow, like he was always just waking up or had just finished a 12-hour shift. I liked it. The way he talked about work made him sound exhausted but proud. He mentioned a patient once who nearly didn't make it and said it kept him up for days. I asked him if it ever got to be too much, and he said yeah, but helping people made it worth it. He kept saying he wanted to meet, but things would always come up. Extra shifts. Covering for someone. Then finally, he said he had a day free and wanted to take me somewhere peaceful. Somewhere we could actually talk without being interrupted. He offered to send a car. That should have been a red flag, but I was just excited. He said it was easier since I didn't drive and he was a bit outside the city. I figured, sure, let's see where this goes. The driver picked me up around 1 p.m. Black car, tinted windows. The guy barely said a word the whole drive, but again, I just chalked it up to being professional. I had no clue where we were going because the route made 0 sense. I kept checking Google Maps, and the blue dot was just floating through random rural streets. I thought maybe he lived on hospital property or something, I don't know. It was weird, but I wasn't nervous yet. Until we turned onto this long, empty road surrounded by metal fences. I remember leaning forward, trying to read the sign, and my stomach just sank. Correctional facility. I didn't even have time to process it before the car pulled up to the security gate. A guard came out, said my name like he was expecting me, and asked for ID. I was too stunned to say no. I just handed it over. They gave me a visitor's badge. Took my phone. I asked who I was meeting, and the guard just smiled like it wasn't the first time he'd been asked that. Inside, I was led through a metal detector, past thick doors, down a hallway with flickering lights until we reached a room with a glass wall and 2 phones. Yeah, a prison visitation room, like in movies. I still hadn't seen Daniel. I thought it was some mistake. That I'd walk in and he'd be sitting there in scrubs, laughing at the whole thing. But when he walked in, he was wearing beige, not scrubs, not regular clothes, prison uniform. He smiled like this was totally normal. He sat down, picked up the phone, waited for me to do the same. I don't even remember what I said, probably just stared. He started talking like nothing was off, like this was our date. He complimented my hair, asked how the ride was, said he was happy I made it. I asked why he lied. He just said he was a doctor, technically, in the past. Turns out he was serving time for fraud. Real fraud, not just money stuff, but posing as a physician in multiple states. He'd been doing this for years, using contraband phones inside the prison to talk to women. I wasn't the only one. He told me that casually, like it didn't even matter, like it wasn't a big deal. When I asked how he got my number, he said he'd been using smuggled phones to run Hinge and Tinder accounts. Said some inmates do it for fun, others do it for money, and he just wanted to feel normal. That word hit me sideways. Normal. I got up, walked straight out without saying anything else. They gave me my phone back. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. I sat in the car, hands shaking, staring at the student visitor badge still clipped to my shirt. When I got home, I deleted everything. The app, his messages, the photos he sent me of his cat. It was probably just some Google image. Later, I searched his name, found a court record, real charges, real sentence, a full article about how he tricked hospitals into hiring him before he was caught. The photo was the same as his dating profile, that smile, those glasses, the face I used to fall asleep listening to. Sometimes I wonder how many women actually went, how many never came forward, how many are still talking to him right now thinking he's just some overworked doctor who likes oat milk and jazz. And sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't walked out when I did. I wasn't even looking when I came across him. Like, not properly looking. I just re-downloaded Hinge after finally getting over my ex, and I was mostly swiping out of boredom. But when I saw his profile, I froze. His name was Micah. He had this sideways smile that looked exactly like Theo's. Same freckles across the nose. Same hair, same awkward hand in pocket pose. Even the dog in his profile looked like Theo's, some kind of retriever mixed with uneven ears. But it wasn't Theo. Different name, slightly different city, and Micah's voice on his voice note was deeper, slower, with a different accent. Still, it felt weird. Familiar in this way that made me sit up. I messaged first, just to see. It was easy. Way too easy. Micah talked exactly like Theo used to. The same punctuation, same little jokes about baby tomatoes, and how he liked pineapple on pizza just to piss people off. He even used this dumb emoji combo Theo always did, which I've never seen anyone else use. Ever. The first few days of chatting felt more like memory than something new. I found myself responding without thinking, like I already knew how the conversation would go. When I asked if he was on any other platforms, he said he only used Snapchat in this account. No Insta, no Twitter. It took me about 3 days before I asked him, straight up, if we knew each other somehow. He said no. Said I just reminded him of someone from college. We moved to Snapchat. Started talking every night. Not calling yet. Just sending voice notes and the occasional photo. Nothing weird. Just selfies, pets, walks, meals. Everything felt normal, but too aligned. He'd always said the exact thing I needed to hear. Always replied when I was bored. Always asked questions about music I liked, food I ate, shows I watched. And it was never surface level either. He'd actually bring stuff up later like he remembered everything. One night, I joked that it was creepy how similar he was to my ex. And he replied, "Maybe I'm just your type." I didn't think anything of it at the time. But after that, it felt like he started adjusting to me even more. Like every opinion, every hobby, every preference I ever hinted at suddenly became his thing too. I said I missed the arcade near my old uni. He said he loved arcades and sent a picture of old tokens he kept. I mentioned I hated movies that dragged on. He suddenly hated them too. I told him I was allergic to mango once, and the next day he sent a screenshot of his grocery list with "no mango ever again" written at the top. At first, it was cute. Then it wasn't. When we finally moved to video calls, I was bracing for a jump scare. I kept thinking, what if he is Theo using a fake name? But he wasn't. He looked like him, but not exactly. Same build, same teeth, but slightly different eyes. Hair parted the other way. Nose was a bit off. It was like someone had downloaded Theo and tried to build him again from memory. We kept talking. For a while, I convinced myself I was just being weird about the whole thing. People have types. Sometimes coincidences happen. Maybe it was just a random fluke. Until I posted a throwback photo on Instagram. Just a random photo of me and Theo from 2020, back when we were in Brighton. I hadn't even tagged anyone, but within 5 minutes, Micah messaged me. "That's the shirt you wore when he broke your phone." I never told him that. I'd never posted that story anywhere. I asked him how he knew that. He left me on read for a full day. Then he sent me this long paragraph. No emojis, just blocks of text. He said he followed me online for years. He said he found my blog back in college before I even knew what SEO was. Said he got curious after seeing my profile on a poetry site. Started reading everything I posted. Photos, tweets, playlists, even my comment history on Reddit. He said he watched my old relationship fall apart in real time. And while it was happening, he made notes of how Theo talked, what I liked, what made me happy, what made me sad, What kind of compliments made me smile? Which parts of Theo I missed the most after we broke up? He said he trained himself to become my type. I stared at the message for maybe half an hour. My stomach dropped. My hands were cold. I could feel this weird buzz in my jaw, like I was clenching it without noticing. He followed it up with, "I didn't mean to trick you. I just wanted to be right for you." I blocked him immediately, every platform. And then new accounts started showing up. Not right away, maybe a week later. First, it was someone named Matt, who liked every single photo of mine from the past 5 years in under 5 minutes. Then someone named Andrew started commenting on my stories with inside jokes that hadn't been posted anywhere. I switched my profile to private, changed usernames, deleted old blogs, even made a new Spotify so he couldn't see what I listened to anymore. But every few weeks, another familiar-looking guy shows up on a dating app. Always same vibe, same hair, same smirk, different name, different city, same patterns. I don't know if it's still him or if someone else is doing the same thing now, but I don't swipe anymore. And every time I think about going back on an app, I hear that voice message in my head. Maybe I'm just your type.